White death at 10,000 feet. Soldiers carrying their comrades in arms down to the base camp at the high altitude warfare school, Gulmarg. These soldiers were undergoing winter warfare training when an avalanche struck. 17 soldiers, including a young officer, were killed. Another avalanche struck a post in the high altitude Tangdhar sector in North Kashmir. Another soldier was killed. 3 are still missing. You're watching Ground Zero. I'm Gaurav Sawant. The army says there is no question of either curtailing the winter warfare training or shifting the posts. More than 10 years after the Kargil war, the army is sticking to its guns. No withdrawing from posts in the high altitude areas along the line of control, no matter how high the cost. The rescue operations are on in full swing. Additional rescue teams are being put on standby. The next couple of days could be extremely difficult. They would be extremely crucial. But the big question, how prepared are we? White death at 10,000 feet. That's our focus here on Ground Zero. It's a complete whiteout ahead of Gulmarg. White snow, white sky, all white as far as the eye can see. After the fresh snowfall, even a light movement could trigger an avalanche. Now, despite these extremely difficult conditions, the army is carrying out the rescue operations, working against all odds, trying to save lives of the fallen soldiers, of their comrades in arms. Headlines today is Ashraf Wani and Rauf Ahmad walked for over 10 kilometers in 6 feet of soft and extremely dangerous snow to bring you this ground report.
A natural disaster 10,000 feet above sea level. Around 350 army jawans at the high altitude warfare school at KHILANMARG trapped in a snowstorm. Bad weather and treacherous terrain make rescue operations difficult. Headlines today is the only channel to witness the scene of devastation. Around 350 soldiers were undergoing training at the high altitude warfare school 70 kilometers from Srinagar when the avalanche struck. The avalanche hit a group of 70 soldiers who were training for winter warfare at KHILANMARG. Headlines today's Ashraf Wani trekked for 1.5 hours to get a first-hand account straight from Ground Zero. It was a journey fraught with danger. Walking through 6 feet deep, wet snow was extremely risky. All links to the high altitude camp has been cut off. Yet, Headlines today was the first and only channel to reach the spot.
Just I am standing here in the high altitude warfare institute at Gulmarg, where early in the morning today more than 300 army jawans went away for the training on the ice skiing, and you can see the skis and the equipment of these jawans. Many of them have done it, but unfortunately not many of them have so far done it.
Rescue teams were desperately looking for survivors.
This is one of the rescue teams here, who are rescuing the people who have got
Bad weather hampered rescue operations. The army pulled in all its strength and sent additional rescue teams. Headlines today was with them tracking every move.
The rescue is even becoming tough and tough here in the KHILANMARG area of Gulmarg. You can see the Jawans coming out for the help of their associates who had been trapped in the snow avalanche in KHILANMARG area of the Gulmarg. Basically, the continuous snowfall and the quantum of snow coming out here in the Gulmarg is a big hurdle in the rescue operations. But despite that, 40 Jawans have been rescued and unfortunately 16 could not be saved. बहुत कोशिश कर रहे हैं हम जो इसको बचाने की पहले हम फर्स्ट एड देते हैं उनको बचाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं जो बचने वाला आदमी उसको बचाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं जो बिल्कुल डेड है उसका क्या कर सकते हैं कितने
Throughout Monday in sub-zero conditions and amidst heavy snowfall, Headlines today continued reporting from the site. Search operations in KHILANMARG had continued till all the army personnel had been accounted for, dead or alive. With Ashraf Wani in KHILANMARG, Maurya Mandal, Headlines Today.
Now, along the 740-kilometer long line of control, there are hundreds of posts where soldiers are either deployed or cross extreme avalanche-prone areas to defend the country. The mountains and the mountains in these areas are extremely treacherous. In North Kashmir's Tangdhar sector, the army lost a Jawan in an avalanche just this morning. 3 other Jawans are still missing. A massive rescue operation is underway to locate those missing. 15 army men have already been rescued. At least 4 to 5 feet of fresh snow has accumulated in the higher reaches of the mountains. Not just the high reaches of the Pir Panjal, but also the Shamshabari ranges. Snow-covered, treacherous mountains have made the task of the rescue teams all the more difficult. The incident comes a day after an avalanche struck the army's training camp at Hauz, Gulmarg. And the death toll at KHILANMARG on Monday could have been much higher, but for the fact that rescue teams were pressed into service almost immediately. Not only army personnel, but even some locals joined in to ensure more lives could be saved. It is the High Altitude Warfare School where soldiers train before they're deployed anywhere above 9,000 feet in Jammu and Kashmir. Ashraf Wani with this report.
It was a day when one could see nothing but snow everywhere. On a day like this, rescue teams were out on a desperate task to look out for the living and the dead, trapped under tons and tons of snow. 87 soldiers of the Indian Army were trapped under snow after Monday's avalanche. Rescue efforts were immediately launched. Not only the army, but even civilian local volunteers came in on their own accord.
पता नहीं है सर, हम एक्चुअली गंडोला से आए हैं यहाँ पर इनके हेल्प करने के लिए, हमें पता नहीं है.
The task was not easy. It was impossible to walk in the 8 feet deep snow, and the persistent snowfall made it worse.
This snowfall has hampered the rescue work, but so far more than 300 army jawans had been put on the job to rescue those jawans who had got buried under the snow in KHILANMARG.
Time was short and there was no road for them to take. So rescue workers charted their own path. Some walked, some took to their skis, while some took off on snow scooters. Anything that would help them save more lives.
तो कुछ जवानों को निकाल पाया बाहर?
हाँ, बहुत को निकाला है।
अच्छा, अभी तक क्या कितने आपको लोग मिले हैं अवलांच से?
अभी तक तो कम से कम हमने 60-70 बंदे ढूंढे।
According to the army, around 350 soldiers were undergoing training at the High Altitude Warfare School. These soldiers were divided into groups of 70 to 80. When the avalanche struck, only one group came under it. Had the groups been together, the casualty would have been much higher. The other group of soldiers who were close by pressed themselves into rescue work immediately. With all roads blocked, it was a challenge bringing in the ambulances. Snow cutters worked overtime to clear the road to KHILANMARG, but constant snowfall kept blocking access. 17 soldiers died in the avalanche and their bodies were brought back on sledges. But had not the rescuers made superhuman efforts under extreme conditions, the death count could have been much higher. With Ashraf Wani in KHILANMARG, Maurya Mandal, Headlines Today.
Maintaining the sanctity of the line of control, especially in the extreme high altitude areas, is very difficult. Each area has its own peculiarities, each difficulty worse than the other. Now, north of Pir Panjal in Kashmir, across Zojila in the Dras Kargil sector, in Siachen and beyond in eastern Ladakh. At these high altitude warfare schools, soldiers learn to battle each of these difficulties in each of these sectors. Every lesson could be that all-important differentiator between life and death.
The world's highest battlefields, conditions that can only be described as hell on earth. The home to the Indian Army Jawan. The cruel tragedy at the Army's high-altitude warfare school in KHILANMARG was also a terribly ironic one. The soldiers who were killed by the avalanche were training for an existence that's only a shade better than death itself. Staying alive at 18,000 feet at unspeakable temperatures is one thing, but performing to your fullest potential, being a full-fledged soldier, on high alert at every moment, ready to perform combat, is quite another matter. The dead of KHILANMARG were being trained for the most brutal of military responsibilities, where even breathing is a crushing strain.
Like these bankers, these are deployed throughout the line of control in the Jammu and Kashmir. Basically, these Jawans who always stay in these bankers keep a vigil eye on the each and every movement for the day and night on the enemy's activities from these bankers. These are heated from inside, as the temperature outside is -20 to -30 degrees centigrade.
From cooking special high-altitude food where fires don't burn, to having the dexterity to fire weapons when the cold numbs every sense. Those are the realities at our forward posts, the units that sit on our very borders. Soldiers are handpicked for high-altitude battle deployments. Only those at the peak of physical fitness can hope to even survive there. For weeks, they are tested to the limits of their abilities, with obstacle courses, cold weather weapon handling tests, and trials of sheer mental strength.
In these extreme weather conditions here in the Kargil and Dras districts on line of control, there are many areas, many mountains where snow accumulates more than 10 to 20 feet. During that period, it is very difficult to identify the actual tracks for the routes towards the posts and towards the positions. For that, these kinds of ropes are being used as the trackers. They show the way towards the posts to the Jawans who are deployed on different posts along LOC.
The devastated school at KHILANMARG churned out soldiers by the dozen, capable of braving the worst that nature has to offer. Ironically, they are even trained to survive avalanches. With Ashraf Wani, who went to the line of control. Enjoy headlines today.
And the weather has packed up across the state in Jammu and Kashmir. The Banihal tunnel, the Jawahar tunnel, had to be closed down because of the heavy snowfall. Now this has cut the land route to Kashmir. While it's been raining continuously in Srinagar, heavy snowfall continues to blanket the mountainous areas across the valley.
It is the fourth day when the Kashmir Valley is cut off from the rest of the country due to heavy snowfall at Kazigund and Jawahar tunnel. It is heavily raining in the Srinagar for last 4 days, and even snowfall started today morning, and it is heavy snowing in the upper reaches of the Kashmir, including Gulmarg, KHILANMARG and Pahalgam area of Kashmir Valley. There is continuous threat of avalanches in the residential areas of hilly areas in Kashmir. With cameraman Mehraj, Ashraf Wani for Headlines Today in Srinagar.
The 300-kilometer long Jammu-Srinagar highway is now closed for the fourth successive day due to the heavy rain and snowfall. Thousands of travelers are stranded at bus stations that look no less than refugee camps. It's been a nightmare for these stranded passengers. Having run out of money and resources, families have been camping here for more than 3 days now.
पैसेंजर्स और मतलब जो टूरिस्ट्स की सेफ्टी के लिए प्रिकॉशनरी मेजर्स के तहत रोड 8:30 लगभग बंद किया था, तो इंशाल्लाह हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं और आधे घंटे में रोड खुल जाएगा और अपनी अपनी मतलब रास्ते के लिए जाएंगे। इस वक्त मेरे ख्याल में काजीगुंड में 100-150 पैसेंजर व्हीकल्स हैं।